Been talking about Donald Trump's wild weekend, so to speak. So as you know, he spoke Friday in front of Mount Rushmore. No social distancing because it's not like there's a pandemic or anything going on. It's not like cases throughout the country are not like there's an uptick, not like there's any concern, right? No, not at all. Why not hold a rally where everyone wearing their little Trump hats and Trump knee pads could sit next to each other and not practice social distancing and cough on each other? There's nothing wrong with that, right? Everything's cool. Just ask Kimberly Guilfoyle how that's working out for her. But anyway.
Did see a lot of masks.
Yeah. But he spoke in front of, and I say he, Donnie, spoke in front of Mount Rushmore on Friday. He says he signed an order creating an American Heroes Guard, and he's worried about monuments. That's what's on his mind. We've got a global pandemic. We have a fourth of all the cases of coronavirus in this country throughout the world. We have 25%. Okay?
What's the percentage of the population, Brian?
A lot.
No. What's the percentage of the population in the United States in the world? 4%.
And yet we have 25%. That's a good point.
Crazy numbers.
Yeah. And it's not like we have racial divide in this country either, or, police brutality, or not like there's any protests going on or anything like that. All the stuff going on, the president wants to focus on the monuments. Here's what he said in front of Mount Rushmore on Friday. Listen to this.
So today, under the authority vested in me as President of the United States, I am announcing the creation of a new monument to the giants of our past. I am signing an executive order to establish the National Guard of American Heroes, a vast outdoor park that will feature the statues of the greatest Americans to ever live.
I'm wondering in that speech if he said, I'm putting a statue of Adolf Hitler in front of the White House. I think all the people there would have started cheering. Yeah, woo! I mean, it's so stupid. These people are so dumb. Anyway, it gets worse, folks. It gets worse. Later in the weekend, Trump said, he claimed that 99% of the coronavirus cases were, quote, harmless. Have a listen to this.
Now we have tested almost 40 million people. By so doing, we show cases, 99% of which are totally harmless.
Totally, which is, by the way, completely not true. It's not true. And by the way, are you suggesting because people aren't dying, it's harmless? The people that have had coronavirus, it's just completely harmless to them unless they die? It's such an ignorant statement. It is un-effing believable.
I think it was Neil Cavuto on Fox Business took out his pad and his pencil and did a little basic math and came up with 9% of the cases resulted in hospitalizations. So it was a pretty easy claim to knock down.
Yeah, it's harmless if you have to be hospitalized. That's completely harmless.
And speaking of math, Stein, correct me if I'm wrong, but 40 million in a country of 340 million isn't exactly, an overwhelming percentage of people that have gotten tested in this country. But we digress, right?
Exactly.
Brian?
And here's what's harmless. Your fake bone spurs. That's what was harmless when you dodged the military 4 times. But it gets worse, folks. I can't believe I'm going to read this tweet, but I have to. And he just reaches a new level of stupidity and ignorance.
This is brutal stuff, Brian.
Now, I'm going to read this tweet, but before I read the tweet of the President of the United States,
this is bad.
I want all of you Republicans out there listening. I love you very much. I want all of you to close your eyes, unless you're driving. Don't want to be responsible for a car accident. Close your eyes. If you have to, do it mentally while you're driving. Forget the fact that you're a staunch Republican. Forget the fact that you're a staunch Donald Trump supporter. Forget the fact that you might have resentment towards me and you think I'm this awful, liberal. Just forget for a second. Let's try to imagine that this was Barack Obama that tweeted this out. Would you call Barack Obama a racist? Pretend Barack Obama is white for a second. Or even go a step further. Let's pretend this is Hillary Clinton. Let's just say Hillary Clinton put this tweet out. Would you call Hillary a racist? Let's assume that Hillary Clinton tweeted this out yesterday. Has Bubba Wallace apologized to all those great NASCAR drivers and officials who came to his aid, stood by his side? and were willing to sacrifice everything for him only to find out that the whole thing was just another hoax, that a flag decision has caused lowest ratings ever. Now, if I told you Hillary Clinton tweeted that out, what would you say? Would you call Hillary Clinton a racist? I would. So the last sentence in there is, now, listen, Bubba Wallace did nothing wrong. As we've stated time and time again, it was NASCAR that informed him about the news. And by the way, yes, it was a news. It was NASCAR that told him it was a hate crime. It was NASCAR that contacted the FBI. Bubba Wallace did absolutely nothing wrong. Why should Bubba Wallace have to apologize? Donald Trump, the 5 people in New York, that the 5 African Americans that Donald Trump said for years deserved to be in jail for the rest of their lives, they're out now. Has Donald Trump ever apologized for that? Has he apologized for insulting McCain in his service to this country? Has he apologized to Ted Cruz's wife for attacking her looks? Or Carly, listen, the list is ongoing of things that Donald Trump could apologize for. I'm not going to go
Carly Fiorina.
Fiorina, right. Has he apologized to any of those people or making a menstrual cycle joke in regards to Megyn Kelly? Did he apologize for that? No. Donald Trump has never apologized for anything in his life. And Bubba Wallace should apologize for doing nothing wrong. But, folks, here's the sentence that is even worse than that. Yes, should we be surprised he's going after the only African American in NASCAR? No. I've openly called Donald Trump a racist, but here's the proof in the pudding. He said the flag decision, and by the way, the flag decision he's talking about, we're talking about the Confederate flag, which is a symbol of hate and racism. And he's defending the Confederate flag. And he's saying in that sentence that NASCAR making the decision, which I think was 30 or 40 years too late, finally saying, no, we don't want to see the Confederate flag at our races. And Donald Trump is defending the Confederate flag. That and the flag decision has caused lowest ratings ever. So he's criticizing the flag decision. He's saying it's okay for the Confederate flag. He's defending the fact that he thinks the Confederate flag should be. That's what he's doing. Make no mistake about it. He's defending the Confederate flag, saying there's nothing wrong with the Confederate flag being shown at a NASCAR race. By the way, it shouldn't be shown anywhere. And, Chris, have a listen to Kaylee, the press secretary, and then I'll get you to respond to this. Yep. Trying to defend these tweets on Bubba and the Confederate flag. It's unbelievable. This was a response to a question from NBC's Peter Alexander about Trump supporting the Confederate flag. Have a listen to this.
Well, I think you're mischaracterizing the tweet. The tweet was aimed at pointing out that the FBI report of the alleged hate crime at NASCAR concluded that the garage door pull, which had been there since last fall, was obviously not targeted at a specific individual because, in fact, it was a garage pull, and, in fact, it was there since last fall, long before these 43 teams arrived. And it was concluded by the FBI that this was, quote, not an intentional racist act.
Okay, first of all, dummy, it's not a garage pull. It's a noose, you dope. That's number one. The FBI said it was a noose. NASCAR said it was a noose, you idiot. And then Alexander, being a good reporter, and I know there's a lot of people on the right that are going to say, Alexander, enemy of the people. Oh, he's just so terrible for asking this question. Alexander asked for a little bit of clarification. Have a listen to Kaylee's response to this.
The president never said that. Again, you're taking his tweet completely out of context.
The president said that NASCAR saw bad ratings because they took down the Confederate flag, banned the Confederate flag. Does he believe NASCAR should fly the Confederate flag, and why don't they fly it here?
The whole point of the tweet was to note the incident, the alleged hate crime, that it, in fact, was not a hate crime. At the very end, the ban on the flag was mentioned in the broader context of the fact that he rejects this notion that somehow NASCAR men and women who go to these sporting events are racist, when in fact, as it turns out, what we saw with the FBI report and the alleged incident of a hate crime, it was a complete indictment of the media's rush to judgment, once again calling this a hate crime when the FBI completely dismissed that.
Okay, first of all, NASCAR called it a hate crime. We were going off reports from NASCAR. That's number one. Number two, and I think this is the most important point that I'll make about this whole thing, is that everything she just mentioned in that answer was not an answer. We're specifically talking about the president's tweet defending the Confederate flag. We can talk about the investigation. We can talk about how this wasn't a hate crime. The bottom line is the president of the United States will not take a side on the Confederate flag. It makes absolutely and positively no sense to me, Chris.
The irony just swaths over me, okay, that when Kayleigh McEnany took on this position as the press secretary, she said, I will never lie to you people. I will absolutely never do that. And there has just been numerous examples where she has done that. As to this right here, this is just another case of her and, which happens with a lot of people in the Trump administration, having to answer for something that you can't answer for, okay? This is a situation where she tries to frame it as if, the president meant to say this or the president's intention was to say this, when in fact, the fact is we all have eyes, we all have ears, and we can all read his tweets and get the real story, the real deal of what he is aiming at and what his intentions are. We don't need to have Kayleigh McEnany try to tell us, hey, this is what he really meant to say or this is what he was trying to say. And when it comes to this issue here, I mean, she's just flat out wrong in her interpretation of what exactly the president's trying to mean here and trying to say, okay? The president was trying to shame Bubba Wallace, okay, in saying he should apologize because he buys into this whole narrative that a lot of people that support the president talk about, where they compare Bubba Wallace to Jussie Smollett. They're comparing him to Jussie Smollett. They're two separate issues. Jussie Smollett is a totally separate thing. He purposely and intentionally, okay, misrepresented things to make it look like he was a victim. That's not what Bubba Wallace did. That's not what
NASCAR did either.
That's not what NASCAR did either.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. And by the way, NASCAR, you said NASCAR called it a hate crime. NASCAR didn't call it a hate crime. NASCAR just reported it to authorities, that they were concerned.
But to be fair,
because there was a noose used as a garage door opener.
But to be fair, the president of NASCAR did tell Bubba that he believed he was the victim of a hate crime. I think it's important to note that.
But getting back to the president, okay, his intention in that tweet was not, okay, to be benign. It was not to, I'm going to sit on the fence. He was we all know exactly what Donald Trump, our president, meant in that tweet. He meant you should apologize, Bubba. And then he started talking about the Confederate flag and the Confederacy afterwards.
And for everybody out there listening, no, this is not a tape. This is not a best of the Vegas take. Yeah, we are talking about Bubba Wallace again. And the story's, 3 weeks old now? President Trump brought this up again.
Brought it up in a tweet.
I can only imagine Kayleigh. I mean, I have a small shred of sympathy for her that she wakes up every morning going, what am I going to have to what am I going to have to defend now?
Exactly.
And it turns out it's not about the monuments or anything like that. No, she finds out that he's tweeting about Bubba Wallace again and NASCAR and the Confederate flag, and he's drudging up a story from 3 weeks ago.
And by the way, somebody who I respect very much in the business as a reporter, Paula Reed is a very, very good reporter, happens to be an African-American woman. And she asked Kayleigh, why should Bubba Wallace have to apologize when he did absolutely nothing wrong? Listen to this.
Well, look, the FBI, as I noted, concluded that this was not a hate crime, and he believes it'd go a long way if Bubba came out and acknowledged that as well.
What the hell is she talking about?
It was cut off, Brian, though, too. She was about to bring up Jussie Smollett's name. She was about to bring up Jussie Smollett. She's feeding into this whole narrative that people want to talk about, which is ridiculous.
Bubba Wallace has acknowledged that it was not a hate crime. Kayleigh's so dumb, she doesn't even know that. I'll play it for you if you don't believe me, ladies and gentlemen. Bubba has already acknowledged it wasn't a hate crime. Right here, he's acknowledging the noose was not directed at him. Have a listen to this.
It wasn't directed towards me or my family, but somebody still knows how to tie a noose, and whether they did it as a bad joke or not, who knows? But it was good for the public to see.
There you go. He just admitted it.
That was June 26th.
Yeah, I mean, this was weeks ago. And by the way, Lindsey Graham, who in my personal opinion is also a disgrace, he has no credibility at all. I think the people in the gay brothels, that story that came out that said that he frequented that, have probably more credibility than Lindsey Graham has. I'll put it that way. Lindsey Graham on Brian Kilmeade. I'm serious, by the way. Lindsey Graham on Brian Kilmeade responded to Trump's tweet about this. Remember, this is Lindsey Graham, who has been wearing the Donald Trump knee pads for several years now. Remember, it was only 4 years ago that Lindsey Graham said that Donald Trump wasn't fit to be the president of the United States. He wasn't mentally fit. Lindsey Graham said that, and in the last 3 years, He's been wearing the Donald Trump knee pads. This is Lindsey Graham on the Brian Kilmeade Show responding to this Donald Trump tweet. Have a listen to this.
Well, I don't think Bubba Wallace has anything to apologize for. I do say this about the drivers. Even though it was a noose created to hold the door open, in the times in which we live, there's a lot of anxiety. So what did you see? You saw the best in NASCAR. When there was a chance that it was a threat against Bubba Wallace, they all rallied to Bubba's side. So I would be looking to celebrate that kind of attitude more than being worried about it being a hoax.
I can't believe I'm saying this. I could not agree with Lindsey Graham more. We shouldn't be talking about, the hoax, because it wasn't a hoax. We should be talking about how that Monday NASCAR came together. It was a great moment for NASCAR. They should be celebrated for taking the Confederate flag down at their races. And by the way, Kaylee also said in that press conference that the president doesn't take a side on the Confederate flag. I cannot believe she said that. Can you imagine Kaylee sitting in the Oval Office with Donald Trump? She's trying to get clarity and clarification. Mr. President, what is your position on the Confederate flag? And she claims that he looked at her and he said, I don't really have an opinion either way. A flag that represents hate, racism, slavery, and bigotry, and the President of the United States doesn't have an opinion on it. Folks, defend it if you may. 702-257-5396. Again, that number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. 257-5396. Do you take our side or do you take the side of, well, you know what, the president didn't do anything wrong. Here's what I think he meant to say. We'll take some phone calls. Let's go to David. David, you're first up on the Vegas Take.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering if I could go back to the Tammy Duckworth, or are you guys already done with that?
Absolutely, right?
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so, this is the first time I ever even heard you guys on the radio. I just moved to Vegas from Chicago. So I know about Tammy Duckworth. And I'm also a veteran. And I served in the Gulf War with Tammy, not in her unit, but I think we are allowed to question her, her motives. I found her to be, somewhat radical. And I voted for Rahm Emanuel up there, and I also voted for my alderman, who's a Democrat. But I did find her outside my political spectrum up in Chicago.
So what, though? I mean, sir, with all due respect, and thank you for your service, being outside your political spectrum is one thing. Questioning somebody's patriotism is something completely different, don't you think?
Well, he said they, and then you applied they.
No, I did not. No, I did not. I'm going to do I need my producer to read the quote again? Jason, our producer, can you read the quote again for this gentleman? I appreciate your perspective, sir, but you're just flat out wrong.
I don't have it right in front of me. We could maybe play the audio again. He did a whole segment on Tammy Duckworth and then grouped her in with people.
Right.
Come on, let's not pretend that, because why even bring her up then? Well, come on.
Can I ask you a question?
We have to
caller,
agree
from
on
one veteran to another, to the caller, okay? Because myself, I've also served as well. It doesn't anger you that someone like Tucker Carlson, who has never served in the military, okay, who has never served his country, is going to come out on national TV and he's going to disparage someone who has lost limbs in the field of battle, someone who has fought for our country. It doesn't make you mad at all that someone like that is taking that position?
No, because I don't think that we as veterans get a pass. That being a veteran doesn't give you a pass from scrutiny from anybody.
It's not about giving a pass. You don't have to go down that road. He doesn't have to take it to the nth degree. Okay, there's many ways that he can respond. He doesn't have to hammer Tammy Duckworth.
Here it is, David. It's long been considered out of bounds to question a person's patriotism. It's a very strong charge, and we try never, ever to make it. But in the face of all of this, the conclusion cannot be avoided. These people actually hate America. And he said that right after he said that Tammy Duckworth was an unimpressive and silly person.
And I'll even go a step further here, David. Would it have been out of the realm of possibility for Tucker to say, listen, I appreciate her service to this country, but here's why I disagree with her when it comes to this issue with monuments? Would that have been so hard for him as a professional broadcaster to say that?
Not at all. And I've heard him say things along those lines before, and I don't think he hates veterans at all. But, with Tammy Duckworth, I've known her, not her personally, but I've, living in Chicago for 45 years, she was a senator for Illinois. I've known her politics, and I'm moderate right. Okay, so I voted for Rahm. I voted for.
I totally, sir. Listen, sir. I totally get what you're saying. You don't like her politics. You have, you are well within reason for saying that, and that you're entitled to your opinion. But to say you disagree with someone's politics, and even to go further and say, well, I think she's a little radical. And by the way, to be specific, all she said was we need to have a dialogue about these monuments. By the way, there's nothing radical about that opinion. But even if she did say something radical, in your opinion, it doesn't mean you should go after someone's patriotism, especially when she lost both of her legs at war.
Said she hated America.
I don't know if he went after her patriotism. He said
he did. We played it.
He said that he basically insinuated that she hates America.
What you said. His segment I didn't hear the segment other than what you guys played.
All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to play the audio again for you. I want you to have a listen to this. This is Tucker Carlson talking about this woman.
And it starts with Tammy Duckworth's soundbite from CNN.
Yes, have a listen to this.
Well, let me just say that we should start off by having a national dialogue on it at some point.
A national dialogue, please. They're not looking for any kind of colloquy. What they want is a soliloquy. We speak, you shut up and listen. So what to make of all of this? Well, it's long been considered out of bounds to question a person's patriotism. It's a very strong charge, and we try not ever to make it. But in the face of all of this, the conclusion can't be avoided. These people actually hate America. There's no longer a question about that. And yet, paradoxically, at the same time, they desperately want to control America more than anything. And that leads to the most basic of all questions. Can you really lead a country that you hate? Ask yourself, what kind of parent would you be if you hated your children?
Yeah, what do Tucker Carlson's parents think about him? Anyway, David, now that I still have you on the line, are you telling me that you are totally okay with what Tucker Carlson just said?
I'm not totally okay with what he just said.
Thank you.
But he also did. Hold on. I get my part too. Well, so his part was, Tammy Duckworth. Obviously, she's on the short list for the VP. Him saying these people hate America. There are people that hate America that are.
I have no doubt. I have absolutely no doubt that there are people out there that hate America. I'm sorry, sir. I just disagree with you. She's not one of them.
Right. By tying her to the issue, yes, he's kind of bringing her into that
Thank
realm
you.
as
yes.
well.
So you understand where we're coming from now.
I do, but
okay.
Hold on. When you guys say they, like he talked about Tammy Duckworth, but I think his they is more directed towards the people that are, actively promoting their hate towards America. Her being a possible VP pick, yes, I could see where that.
He was using Tammy Duckworth as an example of those who hate America.
David, listen, I appreciate your service to this country, and I appreciate the phone call, and I appreciate the fact that it did take a little while, but you finally came around. He
did come around a little bit there. But Tucker Carlson, I'm telling you, he makes that statement talking about how things are. Okay, I'll let you go.
Yeah, well, listen, Chris, take it over when we come back from break.